participants, so we can start. I would like to welcome everyone to the second online event of the Lost Millennials event series. The topic will be on activation with a focus on NEETs, and I would like to give the floor to Zuzana, who will be the moderator of today's event.
Yeah, so many thanks. My name is Zuzana Poláčková, and I see that we have pretty nice number of the people registered. Almost 60 people are in the auditorium, so I'm really pleased, and I see that the topic of the inclusive activation of the young people is really a topic which is of interest of many of us. So I'm really pleased to welcome you on this event. We have 1.5 hours to discuss 3 wonderful cases. So actually, during the next 90 minutes, we will hear the experience from 3 countries approaching the topic of the inclusive activation from 3 totally different points. So from the first presentation, we will speak and we will hear a bit about how the young people, young NEETs are working for the NEETs, and what is the process of the co-production and the participation in the whole process. The second presentation will be much more focused, and it will be from the Spain. Will be much more focused on the change of the system of the integration of the services, employment and social services, how to provide and how to perform the comprehensive approach. And the third example is coming from the Germany. So the third country, 3 totally different jurisdictions and 3 different systems. And Matthias will speak a bit about how to approach the topic from totally different perspective, with the involving the families and being focused on the upskilling and reskilling. So I'm really pleased that our 3 distinguished speakers accepted our invitation, and I'm very much looking forward to hear about their experiences. The first presentation is coming from the Sweden, and the presenter will be Mr. Jonas Abrahamsson. It is always a challenge to pronounce the names, and I'm very pleased to welcome Jonas. Jonas is a project coordinator of one Erasmus project, which is actually very much building of the experience of the project called FEAR, which was granted and supported from the EASY scheme, and was focused on the involvement of the young people from migrant background. And the project and the approach which Jonas is going to present, it is building up to this experience, also involving the international cooperation. Jonas has a long experiences with the work with the young people from the marginalized background, and unfortunately I will have to apologize him because we will have to leave after the presentation, because Jonas also works as a teacher and his students are waiting. So not to make his students happy that the teacher will not show up, we will let Jonas to go. So also from the technical point of view, unfortunately this online setting does not give us the opportunity to speak and to raise the questions directly. So please use the question and answers sections or the chat. So use the opportunity and ask Jonas anything what is of your interest, and because after the presentation, the Jonas will have to leave us. So Jonas, the floor is yours, and we are looking from the experiences coming from the Sweden.
Thank you very much, Zuzana. And the pronunciation was excellent. I'm very impressed, actually. Abrahamsson. It's not the most easiest way to a name to pronounce, I guess.
Hopefully, I will also manage with our friends from Spain and Germany.
Yeah. Best of luck. Yeah, thank you so much for having me here. I'm gonna share my screen. Give me just a moment. There you go. I guess you can see it now, right? Yeah, I take that.
It works. Yeah, it does.
Great. I take that as a yes. So, yeah, my intention here is
Jonas,
to share.
We still haven't seen. We still do not see your presentation. Yeah, now it works. Super.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So my intention here is to share some information about my latest project, NEETs for NEETs, an Erasmus Plus funded project that I am currently coordinating. And thank you so much, Zuzana, for telling the audience that I have a long experience in working with NEETs. Everything is relative in life, and I mean, it could be true, but I have been working with these issues for 4 years. So I could have been working with these issues for 40 years, but at least I have 4 years experience, and it has happened a lot of things throughout alongside the way. And I'm really interested and curious about how to actually motivate NEETs. So I'm doing a lot of work being a teacher, as you said, trying to figure out how to actually create sustainable contacts and sustainable representation and sustainable to make them feel like that they're human rights, and as rights holders and rights bearers, that they feel like they are included for real, not just blah, 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 as Greta Thunberg would have said. Yeah, okay, so what is NEET? I guess maybe you all know, but I don't know because you are not able to talk, all of you, at the same time. So I will show you the abbreviation. It's young people not educated, employed, or in training. That's the abbreviation for NEET. So yeah, NEETs for NEETs. It's a project that consists of different actors from Sweden, Germany, Norway, and Belgium. And we all aim at supporting NEETs in increasing their chances to access the labor market and or fulfilling their studies. And our goal has always been, of course, to provide relevant services for this, in many aspects, marginalized part of our population. So how have we done that? Well, one common activity among all of us partners in this project consortium has been to spend a lot of hours in competence development and a lot of hours at conferences talking about how to upscale our activities, as we tend to call it. So there is a lot of training and upscaling, all kinds of stuff all the time. Upscaling, upscaling, upscaling. But thanks to 2 previous projects managed by Region Västra Götaland in Sweden, the International Labor Market Integration Project FIA, that Zuzana was talking about before, fast track integration in European regions, together with the Swedish Social Fund project, Vi-projektet. It's, you could say, the We project in English. Thanks to those 2 projects, it became clear to us that one efficient way of finding out whether our activities actually are relevant for NEETs or not is to actually ask NEETs themselves. Yeah, so we merged findings from these 2 projects in order for us to co-create developments with the target group NEETs. And as you can see in this new project, we have all kinds of different partners. We are 8 partners in this consortium, 8 active partners, and then Earl All, of course, is really active as well, but they work with dissemination and how to actually spread the effects that our project NEETs for NEETs, how we are doing. Yeah, so the findings that we merged together with from the We project and from the FEAR project are the following. I mean, firstly, one of the most important new finding or method that derived from the V project it was about bringing NEETs from 15 to 25 years old back to school or closer to the labor market. And the positive example from that project, as regards co-creating activities together with NEETs, was when the project management team, together with Save the Children, when we employed NEETs ourselves. So we employed NEETs as experts on their own situation. That is their situation on struggling with exclusion from the labor market and struggling with fulfilling their studies. So we had workshops with these employed NEETs where they got the possibility to reflect upon how activities that are targeting them, how they could be upscaled. And thanks to these employments, the municipalities engaged in the WE project actually got in contact with new NEETs who they never were able to reach before. I mean, we have a lot of lists of names and we try to call them and we try to send mails to them, but they don't answer. But now we managed to reach them thanks to these new employed NEETs and those workshops. And our new employed colleagues, these NEETs, they also managed to create their own social activities where young people got engaged who otherwise wouldn't even leave their homes. I mean, they had been home for years without going to school or going to work or anything. So during the WE project, we started dreaming of a new form of competence development for our staff, where NEETs were invited to act as the experts, like this workshop that we had, where they could be the experts teaching us staff members how to carry out relevant activities for them. So this is when we reached out to our international consortium from the labor market integration project FIA. I mean, we know some of, or I mean, all of these partners that we have in the NEETs for NEETs project, basically, more or less. So we reached out to them and said, hey, we want to try to make these competence developments together with you, where NEETs are the experts. And in the FIA project, we had this experience of implementing a method of co-creation, originally developed by refugees in Sweden and more in detail made by the refugee organization Support Group Network. And Support Group Network is a very interesting organization. Check that out. It has a unique history in co-creation, being one of the most profound refugee organizations of Sweden, but now it's an international organization as well. So yeah, it exists in Norway and Germany as well, and might come to other places. So check it out. It's
Jonas,
initiated.
just sorry to bother you, just double checking because we are still only on the second slide. So not sure whether you moved or.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's correct.
I'm sorry
Okay, that's correct. Apologies for.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I am not a fan of 500 slides.
No, all perfect. I just wanted to double check. Apologies.
Yeah. No, it's fine. It's totally fine. I will be here for a while, but you could, maybe I could like make myself bigger and the slide less big or something. Whatever. You see my face somewhere, and you see this big slide as well. Yeah. So where was I? So this organization, Support Group Network, it's initiated by refugees themselves among the residents of the Restagård Asylum Center in West Sweden. And this is one of the biggest asylum centers of Sweden, actually. And thanks to Support Group Network, you can see their logotype there, by the way. Thanks to them, it has been possible for a lot of Swedish refugees to take actions in their own lives, instead of being forced to just wait for more information about their asylum application. So yeah, crucial contacts with employers, thanks to job fairs and co-creational workshops, have also taken place at this asylum center, Restagård, since 2015, thanks to the initiation of Support Group Network. And their model called React model, also very, very interesting tool that I will talk more about soon. So thanks to the FEAR project, Support Group Network also expanded transnationally, as I said. carrying out many interesting projects and activities in Stuttgart, Germany, together with the local Department on Labor and Integration. They used this REACT model and toolkit together with the slogan, "Refugees empower refugees, refugees empower institutions, refugees empower society." So Support Group Network and Save the Children are now partners in the NEETs for NEETs project, as you can see. And the core question for the NEETs project is, can we duplicate the same concept that was originally created with and for refugees? Could we adapt this concept to make it fit the target group of NEETs instead? Is there a copy-paste possibility here? Of course not. Everything is dynamic, but we were kind of interested in trying to applicate this model to the target group of NEETs. Yeah. So with the findings and experience from FEAR and the WE project and this REACT model that Support Group Network came out with thanks to this work in these projects, we are confident that we can find new ways of working with NEETs in our NEETs for NEETs project. And now I will change slide. Here you can see how the REACT model has inspired the FEAR project, and thanks to the experience from the FEAR project, we got in touch with Support Group Network on a local basis in the WE project as well. And all these experiences have like learning outcomes that is benefiting the NEETs for NEETs project. Makes sense, I guess. A lot of good and pedagogic arrows going on there. So let's change the slide again. So in the NEETs for NEETs project, we will have 2 international competence developments, like workshops that will take place throughout this project. One in Stuttgart in Germany in late November, so it's only a month left. And then one in Borås in Sweden during April 2023. And during this autumn, we have had local pilots where NEETs, who we are in contact with at local level, have been trained by Support Group Network and Save the Children. And the idea is to, throughout this October and November, supervise them and support them enough in order for them to lead the workshops in Stuttgart and Borås, mentioned above. So they are leading the workshops, being the experts, telling us how to upscale our activities. So by applying this REACT model to the target group of NEETs, our ambition is to create spaces at European level where NEETs are helping us to stay relevant for them, basically, and to stay relevant for them and other people in their situation. And then NEETs have actually started to make a difference for other NEETs as well. So therefore, our title, NEETs for NEETs, felt like a perfect title for our project. Yeah, it feels kind of new to start focusing on how NEETs themselves could upscale our activities. I mean, interesting things might happen if tables turn, if they actually manage to reach out to us, instead of us trying again and again to reach out to them. Because for many years, me and my colleagues, we have had our full attention on how to change the mindset of NEETs, like making them transform from passive to active citizens in society. And of course, that's also an important discussion. But it's also important to ask ourselves, like, what about ourselves? How are we doing in this? How much willingness do we have to change our mindset? Maybe NEETs actually could help us learning something about ourselves and how we could develop a more inclusive attitude by learning from the experiences of marginalized youth in society. Maybe they could teach us something here. And by doing so, maybe we could discover new perspectives and new ways of creating a more social, sustainable society, this time together with NEETs, instead of creating such a society for the NEETs, to let them become subjects in their own development instead of objects that we are constantly targeting, kind of. Yeah. So if we start moving towards that direction, thanks to this project, it would be worth celebrating, I think. And I am sure that we who work with making inclusive societies for youth, we would like to meet NEETs at our workplaces with the idea that they can teach us something that we know nothing about. That they have some tools that we miss in order to create social sustainability in Europe. And yeah, I'm stopping sharing my screen right now because now I'm done. And I would love to have questions or reflections from you, if you have.
Yeah, certainly. So many thanks, Jonas. So dear participants, so please feel free to put your question to the chat or Q&A section. The icon is on the bottom line. But in the meantime, Jonas, many thanks for the presentation. And I don't know how the other colleagues, but I found your approach as a very, very innovative and very revolutionary, that actually you are involving the young NEETs to be an expert and teaching and bringing the other young people. So actually you are strengthening their capacity and also participation and everything. But my question, like all what you said sounds as a wonderful, but well, I have some suspicions that maybe it is not so easy on the reality as you explained. So actually, what is a magic, or what is your advice to keep the young people to be involved, to face all the challenges they have to face as being an expert, being involved to the process of co-creation, which is, by the way, a big thing of nowadays in the social services. So how are you succeeding?
That's a really good question. And I will be able to answer you next year because we're in the middle of it right now. But one thing I could say is, I mean, I find it challenging to letting go, kind of, to let the thoughts and reflections belong to the NEETs themselves and letting them own it. For example, I have a very good example that I want to tell you that is a bit funny, actually. It was from a session that we had during these pilots that we have now, like training them to become prepared enough to have these fully fledged workshops in Stuttgart. So we are having these pilots where we're trying out things right now. And one tool that exists within this React toolkit that I was mentioning is Forum Theater. I don't know if you've heard about this method. It's created by Augusto Boal in Brazil like 50 years ago, and it has its fluctuations in popularity. And now it's like a comeback of Forum Theater, at least in Sweden. It's very famous right now. So basically, you're supposed to create scenarios like in a theatrical way where you are picturing a kind of oppression, and the audience is able to intervene and to try to solve this situation of oppression. And it was this NEET who was really enthusiastic about creating a play when we introduced this tool, and he was like, I know what I want to make a play about. It's super interesting and I really need to do it. And me and some teachers there, we were like, yes, finally we will be able to talk about structural racism in Sweden, close to this election that just happened. And we had a lot of prejudice what he wanted to talk about, since he has background from outside Europe, and we thought that now there will be interesting topics raised by this guy. And thanks to us not intervening and trying to like influence him, he created his own play without us knowing what it was going to be about. And then it ended up being about a doctor who was a cannibal and was eating patients. And it had nothing to do with what we thought that he was going to talk about, you know? And we became quite disappointed, actually. Like, this has nothing to do with social sustainability or racism in Sweden or whatever. He wants to do a play about a hospital with a cannibal doctor who is eating patients. But I think it's very important to have patience, the other patients, not the first patient that I was talking about. Having faith in letting NEETs create their world and create their expression, whatever it is, and to give it time, and to give it and to just foster what's going on. And eventually, I think people will feel enough supported to actually act and to actually become a community and be curious about each other, creating a will to represent a marginalized group or whatever. Sorry, that was a really long answer, but I found that example really interesting. Now your mic is muted.
Yeah, it absolutely was. And I also believe that all the practitioners listening might only agree that actually you need to give a space and time to the client. And I still do not see any questions in the Q&A or chat section. So I will use the advantage of being a facilitator, and I'll put the other question, promise the last one. What is actually the indicator of the success? How are you measuring that the process is successful? It is like you want to bring the young people, despite you mentioned at the beginning that the terminal aim is to bring the people to the employment, but in many cases maybe this is not the aim. What do you see as a main success? People or people active, or how do you perceive that?
The main success for me, this might be a bit vulnerable to talk about my dreams with this project, like my major dreams, because we might not succeed in fulfilling this dream, but this is my main goal, and that is to create actually a like annual event at European level where NEETs are having a conference or having a kind of competence development, where staff members from actors working with adult education or working with work counseling or working with civil society issues, that we travel to this place, to this competence development, where NEETs are actually talking to us about their life situation and how they see their reality, and how we could change from an adult position. So that this would become like an annual session where NEETs are the experts and adults are engaging in competence development to learn from NEETs.
So I might only wish all success and to say that fingers are crossed for you. And yeah, still don't see any questions. So you might practice and sharing what you are doing. I think that this was full of the inspiration for many, many, many of us, and really many thanks. And now we will move a bit further. So we will move from Sweden to the south of Europe, to the Spain, and we will move on also from the perspective of the presentation, because actually Jonas was very much focused on the practical method of the working with the clients, And ladies Maria and Margarita will speak a bit about how and I'm very pleased to welcome here two ladies, Margarita González, and Maria Luisa Tamaríz, who actually are both the employees of the public body of the social services in the Spanish region of Castilla and León, so one of the oldest regions. And Maria is a psychologist by the education, having a very long experiences with the work with the clients, changing a variety of the positions on in the social services, working with the families, volunteers, and variety of the target groups. And Margarita is a bit more focused on the management of the European projects. And also thanks to capacities and abilities of both ladies, the region Castilla and León succeeded in the transformation of the system provided in the region, and actually went through the process of the integration of the social and employment services, which also from the perspective of the young people not in the employment educational trainings is very important, because in many cases the biggest problem is not the employment but the social situation. So ladies, the floor is yours.
Okay.
And we are very much looking forward to learning actually what you experience.
Okay, so I take advantage to the presentation. I will share my screen. I guess it's full screen right now.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
You see the presentation perfectly.
Perfect. So we wanted to make a comparison among both projects. PAC project was performed, already was finished. It was funded by EASY program, which is currently the EFS plus funding. And there I write down the web page where you can download for it's available for everyone, different documents in Spanish and in English, where you can see all the details about the evaluation we have done with this project. And then after the finishing of the project, we decided to continue with some part of the experimentation and the second project, the PAC 2, with own resources. First of all, just for you to understand this general overview, we applied for the call of proposal where the most important thing, the core, was to make a proposal on the social investment package. So it was how to pilot, how to experiment a new model of intervention with for the inclusion of our citizens based on the keys of the social investment package. So it was very important in the model, in the new model, the one-stop shop system. So we wanted to make unified access for the social records of our population also available for the social workers in the third sector. That was one of the keys. Then innovative partnerships. So we have the willingness, the political willingness previously for this call to create a protection network among all those private and public agents that we are working in the social services in the whole region, and also the case management, a new model of intervention. So we wanted to develop jointly common models with the third sector and the local authorities, because first of all, I have to clarify that we are a regional public administration, but we have to work, we wanted to experiment how to work really in close cooperation, in multi-level partnership with the local administration social workers, plus the social workers from the third sector. So for us, the challenge, it was not mainly focused on the labor inclusion, the active labor inclusion of some specific population, but general, how to overcome the fragmentation of the responses in social services, incorporating a proactive approach. So let's say the main challenge of PACT was like this: a specific intervention model for vulnerable people, sustained by the development of the network, a person-centered work, really integrated work through a case management system, and with some of the focus in the segmentation population that I will explain later. So this is the difference among PAC and the main challenges also in Lost Millennium project. The methodology. So first, we design a new model of intervention. We pilot during 1 year this model of intervention in close cooperation with all the social agents. And so the objective was to investigate and to develop innovative methods and solutions in social services through this pilot program, okay? So I wanted to compare with this main purpose of the Lost Millennium, to research on best practices, as long as I understand, mapping these initiatives and evaluating them. Our target audience was all the beneficiaries of the social service system who will remain chronically within the system if proactively or preventively we do not perform our actions. So they will be benefited in this case from our minimum income scheme. Okay, so we wanted to pilot with this this target audience because in fact the budget, the public budget on this minimum income scheme was very big here in our region. So we wanted to know how to make more sustainable the system and not to still chronically giving these benefits to everyone, if it's possible to leave this situation, to leave this benefit, because they already are in a situation of inclusion, not exclusion. So, as mentioned before, there are 3 elements in the PAC project that we wanted to experiment, okay? The network, the advanced model of case management, and the population approach, because we wanted to make a kind of segmentation population to see if we can have some hypotheses on how to deal with some specific needs of the population to develop the services afterwards. Not previously, we have a portfolio of benefits or services in the public administration, then the social worker determines which are the needs of the person based on their weaknesses, let's say, and then you offer a kind of services as a social worker. No, we wanted to overcome this and to develop the portfolio of the benefits depending on the needs of the population. So just upside down, okay? So in fact, PACT project was an example of change the management process assisted by technology, because the technology is very important. This population segmentation was made with a specific IT tool that I will explain later. So we wanted to share the social records with the other agents in the system. We want to detect preventively risks and opportunities. So the social agents, the social workers could have the possibility to have some alerts on how to react preventively, always with a comprehensive intervention, like very based on the all dimensions of the person, the inclusion, exclusion situation of the person. With shared resources, because we jointly design a map of benefits and services with the third sector. Not only every partner, let's say, offer what they have, but we put jointly all the services, all the benefits with the local administration plus the third sectors, so we can offer the person the whole portfolio of benefits or services, okay? I will go later to the segmentation population further. Very important, it was a project which was with a length of 3 years. So we were 3 years working with the active involvement of 4 public local entities, plus us, 17 third sector entities in the region, more than 180 professionals, 184 users, 2 university. And for you to compare, it was almost like 3 million euros project. So the budget, it was very big. We were able to perform many different IT tools and to involve many organizations just because it was very like ambitious project, let's say. So I will be focusing on the products, lessons learned, outcomes and impacts of the project, and mainly focus on needs, although not very specifically. The main one, it was the packed collaborative culture, because afterwards it was materialized in a specific law on the management and operation of the protection network. So it was a regional law implemented after the experimentation. So all the organizations that we work together with any person who belongs to the social service system in Castilla and León, we work in a real network and with the specific arrangements and compromises, okay, among all these partners of this network. So we really perform the intervention in a real network. We were able to develop the definition of the shared information content. This is very important because, for example, Red Cross or Caritas, they have their own databases. We have our own public databases, the local administration, their own. So we wanted to jointly have a brief social record of the person, share with all the agents. So if you are a social worker from a third sector and you are going to implement an intervention, you can consult this brief social record that we already have with the whole trajectory of the person within the public social services. I don't know if I explained clearly. As mentioned before, we developed the whole map of shared resources of all this network. So it was hosted in IT application, and also RedPack IT platform for the exchange of information with NGOs, okay, for the case management. So it was quite ambitious. This related to the protection network. Related to the case management new model, we develop pathways graphs of the system users to make evaluations of this social record incorporating the actions of the third sector to see the trajectory of the person. Plus an intervention manual. We developed jointly with all these 180 professionals an intervention manual. It was very ambitious also because it was needed a previous agreement on even common language, because how we call inclusion or exclusion, how is defined, which are the same levels, which are the benefits, how we, because in health, for example, all the professionals call in the same language, the nurses, the GPs, the users, the psychologists, but not in social service. It was missing this common language, this common terminology, this taxonomy. So it was also important, this work. Plus, we developed a multidimensional diagnosis tool for social inclusion. It's based on a software. It was a previous agreement with all the agents. There is a manual, there are some guidelines common with as mentioned, all the professionals. And this is a tool to diagnose the level of inclusion or exclusion of the person, to develop the intervention according to this, let's say, same conceptions, same diagnostic. And also the population approach, the segmentation, is an IT tool, is a predictive model, is an algorithm, a mathematical algorithm to see the chronicity of being benefiting in this minimum guarantee income. So there is a prediction of permanence plus 16 months through this artificial intelligence algorithm. So it was like 16,000 cases analyzed with this machine learning and random forest to see if we can contrast hypotheses and to take actions, preventive actions with this kind of population. Plus, we developed the iPro, which is a proactive intervention software for the detection of the severe risks and opportunities, not only the risk of chronicity, but also the opportunities, because something very important that I will explain later is this PACT project is based on an appreciative approach. So we want to be, in the intervention, we want to be more focused on the capacities and the strengths of the person than on the weaknesses, on what is missed. And also there was integration into SAUS. The SAUS is the big IT system, the big database in the social services, the public social services in whole Castilla and León for professional use with this algorithm I mentioned before.
Marga, apologies, only a few minutes left.
Okay, so I will go further. The main outcomes. Okay, there are some outcomes. For example, in the law, the map of resources. In the professionals, here you have some facts and figures. The presentation is available for everyone, so you can check it later. But it was interesting, the outcomes in the perception of the users in the intervention, because they thought that it's useful method, it's useful way of intervention. And also changes in the system, in the professionals, in the way of delivering the system, and of course in the beneficiaries. Here you see the main impacts depending on the level of integration from the beginning to the end, the list of benefits of the PACT model. This is another way how we explain the main lessons learned in the protection network, in the case management and the population approach. You can check the information more deeply later. Some very innovative elements. It was the whole process, the key process, and how we start with the person who want to participate, and how we make the access, the provision of the benefits or the care, let's say, and the monitoring of the evaluation, the results, etc. Very important, this way of being more focused on capacities. So we want to discover, dream, design, and destiny. We want to implement this positive approach. Some other examples of some products, how it was the definition of the functions of any professional intervening. Some summary of dimension considered in this tool that I mentioned to diagnose the level of inclusion or exclusion, different dimensions of the person to make this holistic evaluation. Some other example of another product where you can see the evolution, the trend of the person, the level of risk from severity to inclusion, how is the performance of the person in these 6 levels, 6 dimensions. And then very briefly, we wanted to perform the pact in a specific collective with own resources. I will go first. The second group of people where we pilot further the experimentation impact was specifically some group of people which is more likely to NEETs, because it's people younger, like they have to be below 35 years, but they are benefiting from minimum income with some specific characteristics on length of this program in this benefit, etc. You have here the profile. It's the type the second type, and they have risk of chronicity to the pattern repetition. So these were the targets with these specific groups and the strategies with them that we wanted to test. Some inclusion strategies, as you can see, prepare and train people for the labor inclusion. It was important because it's the main blue, but there were many other inclusion strategies in percentage of all the population that was taking part of the training. Some conclusions of these experimentations, because it was not easy, because what we can see, well, you can learn these conclusions, but I will go further to the evaluation tools, because I guess it was one of the must for the presentation to be focused on the evaluation tools. So this has a graphic of the assessment tools that we use for the system, for the professionals, the user, and the impacts in short terms. How we measure this with the evaluation tools, the focus groups, self-assessment questionnaires for professional participant, also self-assessment questionnaire, interviews, attitude scale, synthetic indicators of attitudes, and impact analysis. The information sources was participation observation, plus some other tools, the professional intervention field notebook, this multi-diagnosis exclusion tool that we developed, the tracking databases and administration databases. And we make evaluation ex ante, midterm and ex post to see the results of the person before the changing in the intervention and afterwards. So this was the criteria for the selection of the sample and the steps we made. First, the selection of the samples, how we select the sample. The second stage, the selection of all these individuals in the local administration. CIAS is local administration. Third, how we distributed this sample. And the fourth stage is it was select those users with intervention from the third sector. So we select users from all levels. The steps were to create the support team, to create the pilot team intervention, to choose the experimental cases, and also we selected control group. We make a matching among the experimental group and the control group to see the real, to contrast the performance with those who has this kind of new model of intervention in comparison with other control group with similar characteristics. And this is a graphic where you can see the differences before and after the experimentation in the following dimensions of the synthetic evaluation indicators: the emotional well-being, personal development, attitude, intervention, climate, user progression, coping ability, family support, friendship support, support from public network or community institutions. And in orange, you see the initial average of the person, and in blue, you see the final average after the new model. And more information for you to know which were the specific methods for the evaluation, for the assessment, propensity score matching, how we use the nearest neighbor, known as the nearest neighbor method, how many cases, where were the significant impacts, in which ways the conservation of social protection and improvements in the employment access, of course. And what this means is more longitudinal studies. That's true that there was a pandemic in Pact 2, so we couldn't make a better follow-up in Pact 2. This was my presentation. So we are open to any questions. And of course, very important in the presentation, there's the website. In the website, you can download specific deliverables of this project that are open to the general public to go further with these evaluation models that we implemented in Impact Project. I don't know if there are any questions.
Upskilling and the hard to reach and the challenges we face within this area. With regard to skills, the challenges are that missing vocational education can be regarded as a growing risk in the labor market. And especially this applies especially for developed economies with high wages, a shift towards digitization, and a high potential for the substitution of simple and standardized work. And due to immigration, especially in Germany, not the least, we have to admit in Germany failures of the educational system. The rate of persons without formal vocational qualification is persistently high in Germany. So this is really a challenge for the whole country. We have nearly full employment, but we still have a persistent rate of people who are long-term out of work and who cannot really be integrated into the labor market, and maybe only on a precarious and short-term basis. So this is still a challenge, and it's become even bigger as a challenge. Just to give you some numbers, these are very recent numbers from the German labor market. So you have the proportion of people without vocational qualification in the aggregate of people employed. It's only 13%. And it has declined over the years. And if you look at people unemployed on the short term, people who receive benefits out of the unemployment insurance system, it is 33%. So you see it's nearly 3 times higher. And it's even much bigger in the system which is serving the long-term unemployed in Germany. So you see that the missing vocational education, missing a certified vocational qualification can be regarded as a really high risk in the labor market. And I think this development will go on, and it will be becoming even more severe in the future. There's another bundle of challenges we have to face if we look at those most in need of being addressed by upskilling strategies and also integration, long-term and sustainable integration strategies into the labor market. So just to mention a few of these challenges, they very often live in deprived living conditions. They don't have any track of formal education so far. Very often in Germany, we have a very high rate of immigrants, and especially the city of Offenbach is a city with the highest rate of immigrant people, immigrants among its population. It's more than 40% of the population is non-German, and some 70% have a so-called migration background. So they themselves or their parents have come from abroad to Germany. So it's really a challenge, especially among the immigrant community, a lack of work experience, strong family ties, which can also be regarded as an asset, but very often no culture of learning inhabited in these groups. And the corona pandemic has also shown that many of these can be regarded as digitally deprived, so with no access to digital tools, to digital media, and very often, to our surprise, even so-called digital illiterate, so not able to use the tools and the services which are web-based. And very many of them, and this is what we very often find out only in the second or third step of counseling, they are illiterate. So this is really also a challenge within the group of those with a distance to the labor market, for those most in need of new ideas, new approaches to get them upskilled. And so our conclusion is that we have, at least in parts, to extend the perspective of employment services. As you know, the traditional approach in employment services is very person-centered, very individualistic, and based on a more or less rationalistic model of behavior. I will come back to this later on. And our conclusion is that we have also to extend our portfolio of our services towards a more holistic approach, not for all the clients, but for particularly for this group of the most deprived and the most disadvantaged group. So a holistic approach can mean that you move from a situational intervention to a strategy in a biographical perspective, taking into account the whole biography of the people and their embeddedness in their culture and their life course. So which is very much different to the traditional approach of counseling within employment services, at least in Germany. So we also have to shift from an individual to a context-sensitive and systemic concept of counseling, not only addressing the individual, but also addressing their context as far as it is relevant for their situation, for their behavior, for the resources they can use. And this can also imply a shift from a rationalistic approach to culture-sensitive models of behavior, taking into account cultural attitudes, value norms, normative systems, which are also relevant for their behavior, and also which you have to know, and you have to dig into that if you want to change their behavior towards what you want to be more open for upskilling and education. We have set up a pilot project to do this, and this within the job centers in the state of Hessen. And this pilot project is about accessing families as part of a work integration strategy, not as part of a wider social services approach, but really as part of a work integration strategy. We have selected, and the land of Hessen, the state of Hessen, has selected 5 job centers and 5 NGOs in tandem in 5 regions in the state of Hessen, in the north, in the middle, and also in the south. These 5 projects are working they are formally independent, but they work together in a network. So these are 5 different projects, but it's a sort of a mandatory for them related with funding. They are also working together in a statewide network. The target group of all these projects are the most vulnerable group in the labor market, long-term unemployed, most of them very long-term employed, which means 2 years or even longer. Very many recent immigrant arrivals. As you know, Germany is one of the biggest and most important receiving countries of immigration flows in Europe. And so we have, and especially in our region, we have a very high number of recent arrivals. And we also have among them a number of disadvantaged minorities, for instance, Sinti and Roma, which are part of the immigrant communities from Romania and Bulgaria, and in some parts as well from the Eastern, the West Balkan countries. The projects are funded under EU REC. Unfortunately, they only last for more or less 1 year, which is a very short time to implement quite ambitious projects like these. But we have to deal with it, and we are now have already started to think about prolonging the projects and to think about follow-up perspectives for these projects. The elements we have jointly developed in this project is a sort of a redefinition of the client. This may seem a small step for you as an audience, but for the German job center and employment service perspective, this is really a big step, because the client is regarded as an individual person. We have them as individuals in our database. They have a client number as individuals, and so it's really a step to redefine the client not as an individual person, but as a family, as a unit of a community of need, which is going beyond the individual. We also have another explored and experimented with another innovative element to add outreach exercises into our counseling practices, which is also something quite novel for the German attitude of authorities to deal with their clients. We started to network with a number of different agencies in the regions, and among them one of the most important are so-called family centers. Some of you may know the model of the family hub in UK, and the German family centers, Familienzentren, are designed quite similar with a similar approach. So very often they are attached to educational institutions, and they won't go beyond the education of young children and include the whole family with their problems and present themselves as a sort of a hub and a gateway to services and counseling with regard to family problems. And this has proved as quite successful, these family centers, but they have been developed without any link to job centers in most of the regions. And so our approach was to link to these family centers as strategic partners for the implementation of this particular approach. And we also applied for the first time methods of systemic counseling, which has also been something innovative in the world of job centers and employment services. And we have also trained our staff in this methodology, which is a quite ambitious method of counseling. And this has also opened new perspectives for the future work of our units. With regard to upskilling, we had to admit, had to recognize that for most of the clients, it would be too big a step to enter a formal vocational education course in the first step. So we had to prepare ground for this first, and we did this by introducing so-called micro modules for qualification and training, covering areas like digital empowerment, like language skills, vocational orientation, and not the least, learn to learn, to develop sort of a learning attitude, open attitude towards education, on the side of our clients. And this is only these are only some examples. It's a long list. Also debt issues, housing issues, and other issues. So we try to shape them into micro seminars, micro models, learning models, and implement them in our counseling and promotion practice. Here you see some numbers. So it's only a selection of what we did to do as monitoring the system. Here you have the regions. It's the city of Frankfurt, which is next to Offenbach. We are sort of a twin of a city tandem here in the south of Hessen. The city of Kassel, which is in the north of Hessen. The region of Marburg, which is in the middle of Hessen. The Schwalm-Eder county, which is also more in the north of Hessen, and of course the city of Offenbach. And here you see the number of coaching sessions per family in the month of September. So it's you see a certain variation, but it is really important to have a close contact to the target group, and this is still something we have to monitor, and it's not always easy to realize this close contact with the target group, because there are things interfering. People become ill, you had Corona, and you had to stop counseling, in-presence counseling for a while, and so on and so forth. You can imagine it is not going automatically well. And we have, here you see the proportion of virtual coaching sessions. We also had to shift sometimes to virtual media to access these the clients. And I think most important is you have here the proportion of counseling sessions in outreach mode. Outreach means that counseling offices are visiting families in their home or close by their home in some neutral third places, maybe cafes, maybe quarter centers, maybe churches or whatever. But counseling takes place outside the setting of the public authority, outside the professional setting of a service provider. So this has proved as quite successful, and but also challenging with regard to methodology, with regard to the attitude of the persons who do the counseling, and also with regard to the way how to approach clients and to make them acquainted with this form of having contact with public services. And here you see some achievements, also a selection. It is, you always have to keep in mind that these are very hard to reach, very disadvantaged, very much in need of a number of different support services, this client group. And so so far there are some achievements till September in the different countries, and the number of clients is varying very much. So you have a few clients in Frankfurt, and you have a big number of clients in the Schwalm-Eder region and also in Offenbach. So you cannot compare them directly, but so we have already a number of integrations and regular paid work. We have, which is also, it has proved important to extend existing working time to raise the income of the family. And also the entry in training measures is an important outcome for the project. This is an intermediate statistics, so we will hope to extend these success numbers till the end of the years by far. And here we have on an experimental basis, we have developed a sort of a flexible monitoring of hard to measure issues, like the problem solved for the families, which is not only solved within the classical dimensions of employment services, which is integration to work, entry into vocational training, but also solving problems of childcare, of school attendance, of health, of housing, which is very often a big problem for the clients. And so we try to also to take these dimensions of achievement into account. And you see here a provisional table of the achievements of the project. And you see here this is a very important category as the mobilization of other support systems. Very often we have social services within a certain region, but they are not mobilized towards this particular family. The families, they don't have contact to each other. And so it's one of the tasks of the project is to mobilize these services and to bring them into contact, and just to come to the situation that the clients take up the social services which are already there to serve them in their particular situation. So just to sum up in the first approach of theorizing on this, we have a standard approach of employment services, is which individual-centered, specific, has more on the walk-in mode. It has a very strong thematic focus, work. It is applied to standard trajectories, maybe unemployment, then training, then integration into work. So it's a standard model of progressing. And it has very often a rationalistic model of behavior with regard to incentives, with regard to sanctions, which we have as well in our systems, and so on and so forth. And the new systemic approach we are trying to develop is family-centered, is open to culture and context, is walk-in, but plus outreach as a part of the services. It is flexible with regard to foci and focus, and the focus of counseling. So it's also including, it's open to housing issues, health issues, problems of children at school, and so on and so forth. And it's open to a multiplicity of trajectories. It's not always unemployment, training first, then integration to work. Sometimes it may turn out to be the other way around, integrate into work and then arrange for training parallel to the process of integration into work. So it is a multiplicity of trajectories we have to take in account. And it's a multidimensional model of behavior, also taking into account cultural issues and the whole issue of culture, which seems to be quite important, especially with these target groups. Just a short note on evaluation.
Matthias, sorry.
I'm close to the end. Is it okay?
Super.
It's the last slide. So I've already noticed that you are becoming nervous. Okay, so it's a very basic evaluation we do within our network. It is, I already have shown you some elements of it, but the whole project under REACT will be evaluated by the state of Hessen, by an independent institute, and they're doing qualitative research. They're doing interviews with counseling officers and other personnel within the projects, and they also do quantitative evaluations. So I hope to be able to deliver more on this after the completion of the project. And here is my address, and if you have further questions, feel free to approach me at any time. Thank you.
Many thanks, Matthias.